and pro. So Kempner DD will be going pro. The first speaker will be Daniels.
We'll take second speaker, so we'll be Con, second speaker. First is to be Oliver.
Oliver? I need to know what's wrong.
Yeah. Wait. Oh my goodness, scared me.
Thank you.
Before y'all start, congratulations on getting the title.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, with that, shall we begin? Reaffirm the resolution. Observation 1. Because all aid has never been suspended with the current given conditions before, the con is limited to the advantages of keeping aid. So, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines should as an indication of obligation. The first contention is the United States should not provide assistance to a nuclear proliferating country. According to the Washington Post in December of 2011, Pakistan is one of the 3 nations remaining in the world who have chosen not to sign the Non-Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, and have repeatedly refused United Nations sanctioned inspections of their nuclear materials and have made it clear that they will actively pursue the creation of nuclear weapons. Currently, Pakistan is in possession of around 100 nuclear weapons with the ability to create or purchase more. Subpoint A. Proliferation is a threat. Taylor in 2001 states, nuclear proliferation greatly increases the chance of nuclear violence on a scale that would be intolerable. Proliferation increases the chance that nuclear weapons will fall into the hand of irrational people, either suicidal or with no concern for the fate of the world. Limited nuclear wars between countries with small numbers of nuclear weapons could escalate into a major nuclear war between superpowers. A nation in advantaged stage of latent proliferation finding itself losing a non-nuclear war might complete the transition to deliverable nuclear weapons and, in desperation, use them. If that should happen in a region where major superpower interests are at stake, the small nuclear war could easily escalate into a global nuclear war. Furthermore, declining U.S. proliferation leadership kills effective nuclear weapon control and allows for an unsafe nuclear power to spread. Evelyn 2002 writes, the United States has lost the lead in many areas of nuclear energy technology, weakening the negotiating ability of the United States to build a fully effective international nuclear weapon control regime and to continue to ensure the safe keeping of nuclear weapons and stop proliferation. Subpoint B. The United States' obligation to the world as a global hegemonic power is to prevent a nuclear outbreak. As a nuclear superpower of the world, the United States has an obligation to stop the possibility of nuclear war occurring. In terms of Pakistan, the very fact of them creating more nuclear weapons increases the chance of nuclear war. This, coupled with their numerous ties to terrorists, such as the Haqqani network, means that if they aren't stopped, nuclear war is inevitable. In order to protect the interests of the world, the United States should stop providing assistance to Pakistan. This accomplishes 2 goals. First, provides a coercive tactic to actively encourage Pakistan to sign the Non-Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, and second, fulfills our obligation to the world by no longer supporting a nuclear proliferator. The non-proliferation regime has empirically worked. Rindelaub in 2007 writes, the international non-proliferation regime has proved largely effective in limiting the spread of nuclear weapons. Contrary to the predictions made that 20 to 30 states would possess nuclear weapons by the 1970s, by the year 2007, only 9 states have actually conducted nuclear weapon tests. The implication is such that a diplomatic solution is the only one that can be explored at this point, and it has success leading up to the present day. Contention 2. American intervention increases insurgency. The Carnegie Endowment writes in 2011, many Pakistanis argue that because the United States' war on terrorism, Pakistan has been drawn into America's war with grave consequences. They cite figures demonstrating that as the U.S. role in the region has increased, and as Pakistani military has been further drawn in, it has been Pakistanis who have overwhelmingly suffered. There were 189 deaths from terrorism-related violence in Pakistan in 2003. However, this number rose to 3,599 in 2007 and has grown ever higher since. Pakistan's Prime Minister recently stated that as many as 35,000 Pakistanis have been killed since 2001. Pakistani government estimates suggest that Pakistan's economy has suffered a loss of $68 billion since 2002 on account of the war. Clearly, there is a great deal of weight in these arguments because the United States is blamed for not containing terrorism in Afghanistan and allowing it to spread to Pakistan. Hence, it seems the United States is paying a high price for getting just enough in return to keep it relevant and interested in continuing aid, while reinforcing the military dominance that continues to complicate the American anti-terrorism objectives. So for these reasons, I urge a pro ballot. Yep.
Quick note, judges. Pleasure?
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. When discussing the volatile situation in South Asia and the Middle East, it's natural to recall the words of late Ambassador Richard Holbrooke. There is no solution in Afghanistan unless Pakistan is part of that solution. It is because we agree with the ambassador that we negate the resolution resolved, the United States should suspend all assistance to Pakistan. The thesis of the con is that suspending aid to Pakistan will severely hinder our efforts in the Middle East. Contention 1. Suspension of aid will result in the loss of very valuable supply lines. At present, Pakistan, and especially the Pakistani military, show few signs of restoring cooperation with the United States. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, on January 11th of this year, after a NATO airstrike that killed 24 Pakistani troops, General Kayani, the chief of the army and by all accounts the most powerful man in Pakistan, retaliated by shutting down the NATO supply corridor through his country. However, this wasn't a first-time occurrence. The New York Times on December 14th of last year furthered that Pakistan has temporarily allowed NATO to ship perishable food to its troops on Afghanistan, which is a sign of falling tensions following U.S. airstrikes. However, if we cut aid now, we would undoubtedly lose access to these supply lines indefinitely. The problem with this is that the loss of these supply lines would be burdensome in the war on terror. With Pakistan out of the equation, the only other options would be very expensive airlifts or costly use of the NDN, or Northern Distribution Network. There are only two routes that supplies can travel through the NDN, both of which travel through Uzbekistan and are relatively more expensive than current routes in Pakistan. Moreover, according to Foreign Policy magazine on December 6th of last year, when the two routes come together, they create a bottleneck where supplies can languish for over a month. The impact of this is that if the United States were to withdraw aid, it would be forced to use these more expensive and less efficient supply lines of the NDN as opposed to the current and greatly beneficial ones in Pakistan. More importantly, inefficient supply lines leave American troops in other areas of the Middle East, such as Afghanistan, undersupplied and underprepared, making it difficult to respond to immediate crises that may occur in the region. Contention 2. U.S. cutting of aid will make Pakistan not only unwilling, but also unable to help the U.S. in the Middle East. According to the Department of Defense government report from March 2011, the Pakistani army over the last 10 years has shifted nearly 100,000 troops to the Afghanistan border. It is clear from this that Pakistan is increasing counterterrorism measures. However, due to the necessity of U.S. aid, they will not be nearly as helpful if we eliminate our assistance. This is because without U.S. assistance, the Pakistani military will be left completely undersupplied and underarmed in order to fight Taliban forces. The New York Times reports in July of 2011 that this aid includes about $300 million to reimburse Pakistan for some of the costs of deploying more than 100,000 soldiers along the Afghan border to combat terrorism, as well as hundreds of millions of dollars in training assistance and military hardware. The Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis in May 2009 furthers that Pakistan needs to work seriously towards creating a capable counterinsurgency force and strategizing its employment, lest the learning curve becomes too difficult to negotiate. However, this is something that the United States is teaching them. The only thing that is clear seems to be that without United States training, the Pakistani military would be at an insurmountable disadvantage to other militant groups. To leave Pakistani troops without training and supplies that U.S. assistance provides is essentially to hand over control of Pakistan to the Taliban itself. A New York Times article from January 22nd of this year reports that Deputy Afghanistan Defense Minister Jawed Loudon and U.S. Special Envoy to Pakistan Mark Grossman have both said that Pakistan's participation was crucial to any peace process, and moreover that there really can't be any comprehensive peace talks unless Pakistan is part of it. Because Pakistan still has open and viable relations with the Taliban, their participations in negotiations with the Taliban will be vital stepping stones to having successful talks. Moreover, the cost of aid of the size of the U.S., the Allied Advisory, and a partner effort in 2014 will be critically dependent on the role that Pakistan decides to play. As such, there are a plethora of political and military risks associated with the suspension of aid because of the inability and lack of willingness on Pakistan's part that will result.